Oh, alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Back from the dead. So, last week, first of all, hope everybody's doing very well. We're doing pretty good over here. I have no real complaints, and I have some things that I'm pretty excited about. So, let's crack on, shall we? Last week, I commented about me coming off a nicotine binge and how the effects weren't what I thought they were going to be, and it was taking too long. Well, it turns out that one or both of two things had to happen. One of which being time, just I guess hadn't been long enough, or effort had to take place. And I got into this a little bit yesterday when I talked about it, that basically whenever I'm doing something where the happy chemistry is easy, it kind of dulls the brain. This fog sets in. I feel like I'm just not as fast or as sharp as I normally am, or as I should be or could be. And I think that the key component there was just effort. At that point, it was like at the end of a workout week, and I hadn't been getting in the sauna, and my workouts have been like okay. But then immediately following that video, I went and just completely destroyed my body and mind through significant effort. And then immediately I was like, okay, yeah, it's cool. I'm back. And I got that sharpness back, and I got that excitement back, and pretty sick. And it's so funny how, like, the absence of nicotine is so pleasurable in itself, and yet the call to that is near constantly present. Not so much, but there are certainly times when it ramps up. And I just find that hilarious that, like, I want this thing, or my body wants this thing so significantly, and yet I know that as soon as I interact with that, my everything that I cherish is like, "Mm." Now, I do believe that there are ways around that. As long as I am continuing with the high effort activities, I think that it is fine. But in my personal experience, I very often lack the mental fortitude and willpower to keep that balance afloat. Normally, I just slowly but surely slide into the easy zone where I just get whatever I want for the cheapo. But that's good. That's good. This is all good documentation. I'm glad that we have yet again discovered this universal truth, at least about me. I mean, I believe that it is the case with, I think that that's just how human beings work. I think that's just how chemistry works. I believe that's just how incentivization works, but I don't live anybody else's experience but my own, so I will only comment on that. But it's good. Yeah, so we're back, baby. We're back. We're sharp. We're clear, and getting clearer. I assume that through more and more effort, which is to come, more on that later, it will just continue improving. And I will continue getting better and sharper and faster and more able to recall details and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I literally just had to wait like another 24 hours and beat the shit out of my mind and body for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, yeah, this machine does work the way that it's supposed to. How funny, who knew, right? Before we get into the really fun stuff, I did want to comment on something that I find absolutely hilarious. So I'd say that anybody familiar with Superman is familiar enough with the ridiculous idea that just because someone puts on or takes off a pair of glasses, that they are unrecognizable. What is interesting about that is that I have a very similar experience in that anyone who knows me, where in a place where I never wear a hat, if they see me or interact with me in a place that I do wear a hat, they don't recognize me. They don't know it's me. They don't, like, there's just no, oh, there he is, there's Nick. It just doesn't happen. And similarly in the inverse, where in places where I always wear a hat and they see me where I'm not wearing a hat, it's like it's a different person. So I don't know if it has something to do with my face shape or my hair or what the hell, but I literally, so I met someone that I work with. I met her boyfriend for the first time. And I wasn't wearing a hat. I had my polo on. I was managing. I run into him at the gym 2 days later. And I go up and I'm like, oh, yo, dude, what's up? What's happening? And I shake his hand and he's looking at me. He's like, yeah, not ringing any bells. He's like, where do I know you from? I'm like, dude, it's Nick. We just met from Buffalo Wild Wings. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's crazy. Insane. And, if that was a singular data point, I would be like, oh, this guy's a fucking idiot. But it happens all the time. It happens all the freaking time. So I guess it just is a fact of the matter that I look wildly different with and without a hat, which is good to know in case there are some circumstances in which, now, wildly different, maybe not. I would say that that's more confined to people that know me a little, are acquainted with me. But like my brother would obviously recognize me, whatever the hell I'm wearing. I could have hat, glasses, and a mask on, and he'd be like, there he is. But, at a certain level of familiarity, this seems to be the truth, which still blows my mind. That seems wild to me. It seems extremely unlikely to me, and especially because I certainly don't have that same whatever trait that is. Like if I see somebody's face, I know what they look like. If they decide to put a hat on, they still look like what they look like. Jawline, nose structure, bone structure, cheeks, eyes, facial hair or not, whatever. That doesn't change. So I still don't quite understand fully, but I'm willing to accept that, yeah, sure, I guess I look different. I don't know. But I do think that is very funny. So this thing has been echoing both in these videos and in my mind lately about that I need to be working harder, that there is another level of productivity and mastery of myself that not only can be attained, but needs to be attained for me to become who I want to become and to achieve what I want to achieve. And it was funny that I was at the bar, I was closing the bar, very slow, nobody in there. And this guy that I've served dozens of times, he and his wife come in very often. He drinks Blue Moon, no fruit. He gets 6 wings, wild, blue cheese, sometimes a side of fries with cheese and bacon. Every time. We have shared very few conversations, and the few that we have shared have been brief. He just is not a very talkative individual, which is fine. Especially being a bartender, I understand that some people want to sit and chit chat and some people don't, and I am the first to respect that. It's my job to make sure that you have have a good experience, but not to steer you in the experience that I want you to have, but to have a good experience that you will enjoy. Right? That's my job. Well, he comes in, and he had a somewhat significant career win, and so he was a little bit more excited, and that may have contributed to this conversation. But he sits down, and it's status quo as per usual, very quiet. We don't talk. And then after he had a couple beers, he just cracks wide the fuck open and just starts sharing with me a bunch of things about himself and about his life and about who he is and where he thought his life was going to go versus where it ended up, and how he feels about that, how he feels about the family he has versus the family he could have had, the career that he has versus the career that he could have had. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes when that happens, I'm a little like chill, but at the same time, I literally have nothing else going on. You're the only person at my bar, and yeah, I'll make a connection. That's fine. I will embrace this moment. And so, we just started talking about his life, and then some of the details of my life crept in because they were relevant, and I was able to ask him some questions. And there were some major takeaways. It was actually, he said some things and illustrated some things that I really needed to hear, and I really needed to hear then. And in the beginning of the conversation, I told him that. I told him that, now, this may be completely coincidental, but I would say that the fact that you never speak to me and you are deciding to do so now means that I should listen, and means that what you're about to tell me and what you are telling me is significant to what I am currently experiencing. And so I opened myself up. And the main takeaways from this, I won't go into it was basically like 2 hours of talking, maybe a little bit less, maybe an hour, hour and a half, but still a significant length of conversation. The main takeaways were, one, that it's time to shit or get off the pot. So, how can I wire this into a way that is fruitful for the both of us, you and I, viewer? There are some things in my life like the next following steps, children, marriage, certain goals in my career and personal life that I am excited by and I want to happen, but in some ways I'm not ready for, and I don't believe that I'm ready for, and I don't believe that I'm the man that can be ready for those things. And so he just kept saying this, and even days after, this was like a week ago, days after, it was just ringing in my ears, time to shit or get off the pot. And it just kind of made me realize that it's like, I got to make a decision. I have to make a decision. I have been playing it fast and loose, and I have been allowing time to pass because I've been appeased by the pace at which my life was moving in all of these different areas. But I realize that we are nearing a fracture point where both can be true. I can either be ready or not be ready, but something has to happen. This in-between state cannot exist permanently. It just can't happen. Eventually, something's got to give. And that means that either A, I fail at any of these endeavors, my relationship or my personal life or my career goals, or I become the person that is ready to embark on these new adventures. Does that mean I'm getting married or having children this weekend? No, it certainly does not. Does that mean that I am going to suddenly be this master and commander of all things and charge into the next phase of my life? No, it doesn't. But what it does mean is that I have to, and I believe I already have made the decision, but I have to really think through what I want out of my life and how I'm going to get there and what I am willing to sacrifice to get there. And there are certainly some things that can go and it would be totally fine, or at least get shrunk down to a minuscule amount of time in my schedule. But it's pretty huge. It's pretty huge because I was under the impression that that my rationality around the pace that I was moving made sense. That yes, things aren't perfect now. Yes, I'm not that person yet, but I'm moving that way and I'm happy with the pace. But I've already been kind of coming to this conclusion. I said it last week, and I just, after this conversation, which did happen after that last video, it just really sunk in that, like, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And not even like a self-doubt or self-deprecating sort of way. I am not happy with the progress that I'm making. I am not impressed. I am not satisfied by my level of effort or my level of commitment or my level of drive or productivity. And so, A, I need to accept failure, or B, I need to move the fuck on and get up, dude. Get moving. On the gas, pedal to the metal, foot to the floor, right? Shift it into the next gear. Yada, yada, yada. I need to get moving. I need to make things happen, and it needs to happen now. I'm running out of time. There is much more time in my life, of course, but for things to happen in my life the way that I have designed them to be, I have envisioned them to be, and dreamed them to be, I need to pick up the pace, and I need to do it very soon. As in now. I need to start picking up the pace today, immediately, right now. And so that it kind of marks this whole thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to do that. That now makes sense to me. I understand that I was wrong in the stance that I was taking. I understand that I need to embrace these evolutions if I want my life to go the way that it was. Otherwise, I may be living with regrets that I don't want to live with. So here we are. We're cracking along. I cut out a bunch of the parts where I was talking about my Notion, but basically, I have devised a new schedule. I have expanded all of the areas of my life that I believe are moving me in the right direction and dedicated more time to them and allotted more time to them. So we're going full bore, and I don't think that I am yet achieving what I want to achieve or moving as fast as I would like to move, but this is the initial revving of the engine. The revolutions are starting to speed up, and I need to keep my foot on the gas and continue that hastening of the pace. It's just necessary, dude. It's just necessary. It's just necessary. If I want to be who I want to be, gotta make it happen. Gotta make it freaking happen. I can expand on that at a later date. what that means in totality, but I think that that's a sufficient enough explanation for today. But yeah, so that was the main thing. Time to shit or get off the pot. I think it's very funny. I think I've heard it a million times, obviously, but this is the first time that it was like, yeah, that's about right now. That's about right where I'm sitting. There are decisions that I've been putting off that need to be made and then need to be acted upon as well. And so that is what I am doing. I was going to say attempting to do, but I am doing that. I am doing that because it must be done. You can only have a dirty room for so long before it's like, all right, this got to get cleaned. It's really got to get cleaned. I keep pushing it off in the corner, and it's been working for a while, but it ain't going to work forever. So when's that day coming? It's today. So yeah, that's the first thing. And the second thing, he was also summing up about how he believes he is the best at what he does. And yet there is much more vertical movement to be had that he will never experience because of what decisions he's made in his life. He's a coach. He's a high school basketball coach, and he's saying that he's basically the best high school basketball coach that exists. And however, he will never be a big-time college coach. He'll never be on TV. He'll never be making the millions. He'll never be up there with the stars because of how he's lived his life. And so he'll never have the proof that he is as smart or as great as he thinks he is. And so he will never know. He will never know if he could have done what he believes he could have done. And yet, because of how he's lived his life, it has afforded him some unique opportunities with his family and with people that he's come into contact with that he would not give up for anything. And I've always lived with the assumption that, or the belief rather, that there has to be a way for me to live my life so fully and so completely that I know it's impossible for me to get to the end and wonder what if. What if I did this? What if I didn't do this? Am I who I think that I am? But this kind of made me reevaluate that and consider that maybe that's impossible. And in reality, it very likely is. That there is no way for me to do everything, or anybody to do everything. You can't do everything. You have to pick a lane and you got to go down it. You got to pick a road and travel. It just is how it is. There's a finite amount of time in the human lifespan, as far as I am aware anyways. And that's not going to change anytime soon. And so you got to make sacrifices and you got to make decisions, and you can always evaluate it later, but eventually there's going to be questions. And that's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal because it takes a lot of the fear or extra planning, maybe. Basically, the takeaway there is that there's always going to be questions. There's always going to be a concern that something could have been better another way. But you have to just do what you believe is right and stick to that path. And as long as you do that, at least according to this fellow, and I believe him, as long as you do that, as long as you stick to as close to the truth as you can and as close to the truth of yourself as you can, you will end up in a place that you like, that you are happy with, that you enjoy. And yet there will be questions of what if I did it a different way, which is pretty sick. That also leads into some problems that needed to be solved and helped me make some decisions that I hadn't been making, which is pretty significant. And the third takeaway, the final thing, I've spoken in the past about not having any mentors, that I don't have really anybody in my life who is living a life that I admire, or is living a life that I would like to live anyways, and is close enough to me to where I can ask them questions and interact with them and ask for advice and seek guidance and help. I don't have anyone like that. I don't believe, maybe a few times. Maybe I've had some semblance of that thing, but wholly and completely, not really. And especially not now. At least not now. I don't have anyone like that I can truly ask advice about how to get where I want to go, how to have the relationship that I want to have, how to become the man I want to become, because I don't know anybody like that. And of course they exist. I just am not in contact with them. And it's a big bummer. It's a big bummer. It was a bummer when I realized that before, but especially in this context, I realized that having a father figure that is what a father figure is supposed to be is so incredibly important as you get older. Um, and maybe it's, I obviously the mother figure is very important. I'm not trying to minimize that at all whatsoever. But especially as a man, there are things about being a man that my mother can't teach me. She just can't. She doesn't know what that means. She isn't a man, so how would she possibly be able to tell me how to make certain decisions or how to even think about certain things? And so since I have that absence, it just kind of made me realize that, oh, holy shit, there's some significant things that I'm going to have to do in my life that I'm really just going to have to figure out myself. There ain't nobody coming to save me. There ain't nobody who's going to come and be like, all right, this is what you need to do or how you need to do it. I just got to figure it out, which is going to be a challenge for sure. It has been a challenge for sure, but it's also like just a real freaking bummer. And it informs me how absolutely imperative it is that I take as much care as possible in being there for my own children and being that person who can answer questions when they have them, being that person who they can look to for guidance and look up to for how they want to live their lives. It's just super important. I think you could maybe even extend that out to just being a role model in general. And that it doesn't even have to be my own children, but hopefully I can figure things out well enough that I could extend that knowledge to others. Maybe this is a start of doing something like that. But I mean, I'm certainly not the freaking guy who's got enough figured out to where you should be listening to me about how to live your life. But maybe in the future I could become something like that. But as far as I'm concerned right now, the immediate importance is that when I do have children, especially sons, sons and daughters, but especially young men, it's profoundly important that I have become someone that can be some kind of North Star for them. And that maybe that I should seek that somewhere, whether it be the study of philosophy or the study of history or just pursuing more information about great individuals who've done amazing things and shared details of their personal life. Maybe I can, you know, grab a mannequin and just staple on a bunch of different qualities, some amalgamation of what I believe a man should be, and then just chase after that. I think that's what I have to do. I mean, that's what I did when I was younger, but I think an evolution in that process has to occur for me to get to where I want to go. Because goddamn, dude, I can't ask for shit. I can't ask for shit. And that's kind of a sucky, dude. I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy that fact. But this is the cards that I was dealt. It is what it is. There ain't no point in boo-hooing about it. But yeah. I don't often realize what I'm missing. But when I do, it's like, man, that sucks that I'm missing it, and I certainly will do everything in my power to make sure that those that come after me are not missing that. Key takeaway there. So yeah, pretty fruitful conversation with this bar regular. And actually the week prior to that, I had a very similar experience. Not quite as profound, but I cracked open the Great Sphinx. This fucking guy, dude. This guy, he never wants to open up, but I got him. I got him to open up at least a little bit last week, and that was pretty exciting. But then this guy as well, and I like doing that. I really appreciate those moments when I can truly connect with another individual and be free of any judgment and just listen. That's something else. I was just reading that somewhere about just listening, not constructing my own counter narrative, not dissecting what they're saying, just listening and just accepting and believing them, and then, dissect it later. Of course that has to happen, but just listen. And that's what I really tried to do, and it worked out pretty nice for, I think, both of us. I think both of us walked away from that conversation feeling like it was worth it. The juice was certainly worth the squeeze, my friends. It was certainly worth it. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and some key takeaways there that I believe will inform much of the next part of my life. Pretty sick. But on my last little bullet point here, I think that in tandem with this next phase of me becoming more and doing more and really chasing after what I want, I think that it's going to be time for some distance to be created with the internet as a whole. I've already significantly distanced myself from social media. I only have Snapchat to communicate with some friends, and I only have YouTube to learn and to entertain and to work, obviously. But I think that even that small amount, relative to others anyways, small amount of internet interaction is at this time in my life not appropriate. And that, my worldview is becoming jaded. My view of others is becoming jaded. And I don't like that. I don't like that the negativity of the internet, which is certainly one of the main fuels on which that machine thrives. I don't think that that helps me, certainly. I don't think it helps freaking anybody in large quantities, but me for sure. Um, I got to push it out a little bit. I got to put more of my own stuff in. And maybe this is also, I've talked about creating more than you consume. Maybe that's a big part of this, that I've just been consuming way more than I've been creating. And that balance has led to some negative outlooks. But yeah, so I'm certainly still going to seek connection with others in the real world. But as far as online presence, I want to shrink it down to a minimum. I want to stop interacting with stuff. It's just so negative. I think that the culture currently in this country, at least, is one of pessimism and confusion and negativity. And the more I interact with that, the more it leaches into my own worldview, which is not what I want. It's really not what I want. So yeah, I'm going to start closing the windows, shutting the doors, and not closing my eyes and disappearing into the darkness and the comfort of the cave, but just shifting the balance a little bit at least, so I can regain some clarity for sure, and become more of the author of my own thoughts. I think too much of my inner monologue or inner whatever workings has become gummed up by the stickiness of what is happening in the world around me. So yeah, that's the next step. Basically, it's fucking grind time, dude. It's time to rock and roll. It's time to just put my nose in what I want to achieve and take it out of everything that really doesn't matter to that process. Does that stuff matter? Yes. Does what is happening in the world matter? Of course it does. Is it important to know? Of course it is. But at this current phase in my life right now, it is not going to get me from point A to point B. It is only going to act as a distraction. And so therefore it has to be removed. It has to be removed in order for this phase to work the way that it's supposed to. But that's pretty sick. I'm also very excited about that. Maybe very excited isn't the word that I would use, but it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be a net positive for me and probably for the people around me. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pretty pleased with the current reshaping of my own life trajectory. And so with that, I will say I hope that you experience similar epiphanies and make good and better decisions for yourself and for those around you. I hope that we can all make that happen together, right? So with that, I will say, Nick out. See you next time. Later.